Welcome to Easy Classic Stories. This is a retelling of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, a novel by Mark Twain. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is a famous book by Mark Twain. It's about a boy named Huck and his friend Jim, who is a slave. They go on a big adventure down the Mississippi River. The book is very successful. Many people love it. It has been turned into movies and plays. It's a fun story about friendship, freedom, and growing up. Now listen carefully to the story. At the end, we'll have an exercise on key events to help test your understanding. Huck Finn lived with the widow Douglas and her sister Miss Watson. They tried to teach him good manners and religion, but Huck didn't like it. He felt uncomfortable in their civilized home and missed his old free life. One day, Huck's father, Pap, returned. Pap was a mean and violent man who wanted Huck's money. He kidnapped Huck and took him to a small cabin in the woods. Pap locked Huck inside and often beat him. Huck was miserable and wanted to escape. Huck came up with a plan. He sawed through a board in the cabin wall and squeezed out. He made it look like he had been murdered by leaving fake blood and other signs. Then he took a canoe and paddled to Jackson's Island in the middle of the Mississippi River. On the island, Huck felt free and happy. He could fish, swim, and explore without anyone bothering him. One night, while exploring the island, Huck heard a noise. He hid and watched as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Jim, Miss Watson's slave. Jim had run away because he overheard Miss Watson planning to sell him to a slave trader. He didn't want to be separated from his family. Huck and Jim became friends, and Huck promised not to tell anyone about Jim's escape. "I won't tell on you, Jim," Huck said. "We can stay here together." Huck and Jim built a camp on the island. They fished, hunted, and enjoyed their freedom. They talked about their adventures and dreams. Huck learned about Jim's life as a slave and began to see him as a person, not just property. As they sat by the campfire one night, Jim said, "Huck, you're the best friend I ever had. You're the only one who ever helped me." Huck felt proud and happy. He knew he had made the right choice by helping Jim. Together they decided to float down the Mississippi River on a raft, hoping to find freedom and adventure. Huck and Jim built a raft and started their journey down the Mississippi River. They floated day and night, enjoying the peaceful river life. Huck loved the freedom and the beauty of the river. They fished for food and slept under the stars. One night, they saw a house floating down the river. It was dark and quiet. Huck and Jim decided to explore it. They found a dead man inside. Huck was scared, but Jim said, "Don't be afraid, Huck. He can't hurt us now." They took some useful items from the house and left. Days turned into weeks as they continued down the river. One foggy night, Huck and Jim got separated. Huck couldn't see or hear Jim. He felt lost and alone. He called out, "Jim, where are you?" But there was no answer. Huck paddled around, searching for Jim, but the fog was too thick. Finally, the fog lifted, and Huck found Jim sleeping on the raft. Jim was so happy to see Huck that he cried. "Huck, I thought I lost you," he said. Huck felt bad for making Jim worry. As they floated along, they saw a wrecked steamboat called the Walter Scott. They decided to explore it. Inside, they found a group of robbers. The robbers were planning to steal from a nearby town. Huck and Jim hid and listened. One of the robbers said, "We'll wait till night, then sneak into town and take what we want." Huck and Jim were scared but also excited. They wanted to see what the robbers would do. That night, the robbers left the wreck. Huck and Jim followed them quietly. They watched as the robbers tried to rob a store, but the townspeople chased them away. Huck and Jim laughed at the robbers' failure. They returned to their raft and continued down the river. Huck and Jim talked about their adventure and how lucky they were to be free. They enjoyed the simple life on the river, not knowing what adventures awaited them next. As Huck and Jim floated down the river, they saw a beautiful house on the shore. Huck wanted to explore, so he left Jim on the raft and swam to the house. He met a kind family named the Grangerfords. They invited Huck to stay with them. The Grangerfords were wealthy and had many servants. Huck liked the family, especially Buck, a boy his age. Buck showed Huck around the house and introduced him to his sisters and brothers. Huck felt happy and comfortable with the Grangerfords. One day, Buck told Huck about a feud between the Grangerfords and another family, the Shepherdsons. "We've been fighting for years," Buck said. "No one remembers why it started, but we keep fighting." Huck thought the feud was silly, but also exciting. Days turned into weeks, and Huck enjoyed his time with the Grangerfords. He went to church with them, played with Buck, and ate delicious food, but he missed Jim and the freedom of the river. One Sunday, the Grangerfords and Shepherdsons went to church. During the service, a Shepherdson boy made fun of a Grangerford girl. A fight started, and soon everyone was shooting at each other. Huck was scared and hid under a pew. After the fight, the Grangerfords and Shepherdsons went home, but the feud wasn't over. That night, the Shepherdsons attacked the Grangerfords' house. Huck heard gunshots and saw people running and shouting. He was terrified. Buck and his brothers fought bravely, but many people were hurt. Huck saw Buck fall to the ground injured. He ran to help his friend, but it was too late. Buck died in Huck's arms. Huck was sad and scared. He didn't want to be part of the feud anymore. He decided to leave the Grangerfords and find Jim. He snuck out of the house and ran to the river. Huck found Jim waiting on the raft. Jim was happy to see Huck. "I thought you weren't coming back," Jim said. Huck told Jim about the feud and Buck's death. They decided to continue their journey down the river, hoping to find a safer place. Huck and Jim continued their journey down the Mississippi River. One day they saw two men floating on a broken raft. The men were tired and hungry, so Huck and Jim helped them onto their raft. The men said they were a duke and a king from faraway lands. The duke and the king were really just con artists, but Huck and Jim didn't know that. The duke and the king told exciting stories about their adventures. Huck and Jim listened and enjoyed the tales. As they floated down the river, they stopped at a town. The duke and the king wanted to make money, so they put on a show called The Royal Nonsuch. It was a silly play, but the townspeople paid to see it. Huck and Jim helped with the show and had fun. After the show, the Duke and the King counted their money. "We made a lot of money," the Duke said. "Let's do another show tomorrow." But the townspeople were angry because the show was so bad. They chased the Duke and the King out of town. Huck, Jim, the Duke and the King quickly left the town and continued down the river. They stopped at another town where they heard about a rich man named Peter Wilkes who had died. The Duke and the King saw a chance to make more money. They pretended to be Peter Wilkes's brothers from England. The townspeople believed them and welcomed them into Peter Wilkes's house. The Duke and the King planned to steal the money that Peter Wilkes left to his daughters. Huck felt bad for the daughters and wanted to help them. He snuck into their room and told them the truth. "Those men aren't your uncles," Huck said. "They're con artists." The daughters were shocked but grateful to Huck. Meanwhile, the real brothers of Peter Wilkes arrived in town. The Duke and the King were scared and tried to run away, but the townspeople caught them. They were angry and wanted to punish the con artists. Huck and Jim watched from their raft as the Duke and the King were tarred and feathered. It was a funny but also sad sight. Huck felt bad for the Duke and the King, even though they were bad men. After the excitement, Huck and Jim continued down the river. They talked about the adventures they had with the Duke and the King. Huck learned that not all people are good, but he also learned the importance of helping others. Huck and Jim continued their journey down the Mississippi River. One day they saw a farm on the shore. Huck wanted to explore, so he left Jim on the raft and swam to the farm. He met a kind family named the Phelps. They invited Huck to stay with them. The Phelps family thought Huck was Tom Sawyer, a friend of their nephew. Huck didn't correct them because he didn't want to be sent back to the widow Douglas. He enjoyed the Phelps family's hospitality and felt comfortable with them. One day, the real Tom Sawyer arrived at the farm. He pretended to be his own brother, Sid. Tom and Huck were happy to see each other. They talked about their adventures and laughed together. Tom told Huck that Jim was being held as a runaway slave at the Phelps farm. Huck was worried about Jim and wanted to help him. Tom had a plan to free Jim, inspired by adventure novels. "We'll dig a tunnel under the cabin where Jim is held," Tom said. "Then we'll sneak him out at night." Huck thought the plan was too complicated, but Tom insisted it would be fun. Huck and Tom started digging the tunnel. It was hard work, and they got tired and dirty. They also had to be careful not to be caught by the Phelps family. One night, they finished the tunnel and snuck into the cabin where Jim was held. Jim was surprised and happy to see them. "I thought you forgot about me," Jim said. Huck felt bad for making Jim worry. They started to leave through the tunnel, but Tom wanted to make the escape more exciting. He insisted on sawing off the leg of Jim's bed and leaving a rope ladder. Huck thought it was silly, but Tom enjoyed the adventure. As they were about to leave, they heard someone coming. It was the Phelps family who had heard the noise. Tom, Huck, and Jim quickly hid in the tunnel. The Phelps family searched the cabin but didn't find them. After the Phelps family left, Tom, Huck, and Jim continued their escape. They ran to the river and found their raft. They were happy to be free and together again. Huck, Tom, and Jim floated down the river, feeling happy and free. But their journey was about to take an unexpected turn. As they talked and laughed, they heard a noise behind them. It was a group of men with guns chasing after them. The men were farmers who had been searching for Jim. They had seen the raft and were now chasing after the friends. Huck, Tom, and Jim paddled as fast as they could, but the men were gaining on them. Suddenly, one of the men shouted, "Stop! We have something to tell you!" Huck, Tom, and Jim looked at each other confused. They slowed down the raft and waited for the men to catch up. One of the men said, "We've been looking for you, Jim. We have good news. Miss Watson died 2 months ago, and in her will she's set you free. You're a free man, Jim." Jim couldn't believe it. "I'm free," he said, his eyes wide with surprise. "I can't believe it." Huck and Tom were also shocked but happy for their friend. But their happiness was short-lived. As they celebrated, Tom was accidentally shot in the leg. He fell to the ground, crying out in pain. Huck and Jim rushed to help him. "Tom, are you okay?" Huck asked, worried. Tom grimaced in pain but tried to smile. "I'll be fine, Huck. It's just a scratch." The men helped Tom, Huck, and Jim back to the Phelps farm. Tom's leg was bandaged, and he was told to rest. Huck stayed by his side, feeling bad for his friend. As Tom rested, Huck thought about everything that had happened. He had gone on so many adventures and met so many people. He had learned about freedom, friendship, and the importance of helping others. But Huck also knew that he didn't want to go back to his old life with the widow Douglas. He didn't want to be civilized and follow rules. He wanted to be free and explore the world. So, Huck made a decision. He said goodbye to Tom and the Phelps family and set out on his own. "I reckon I'll light out for the territory ahead of the rest," Huck said to himself. "I can't stand it no more. I've been there before." With a heart full of dreams and a spirit hungry for adventure, Huck Finn left the Phelps farm and headed west, ready to face whatever came his way. And so, his journey continued, filled with the promise of new adventures and the freedom he loved so much. Great job sticking with the story all the way to the end. It's time to review the key ideas with a fun multiple-choice quiz. You'll find the answers in the comments section. Take your time with the questions, and don't forget to leave a comment below to let us know if you enjoyed the story. Your feedback helps us improve. If you liked it, show your support by hitting the like button. It really makes our day. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Thank you so much for being with us.